Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Select Board is called to order at 6:02 p.m. today. And for a moment, I have some sad news. We lost one of our police officers last week to natural causes. His name was Stephen Townsend. He's a nice man, good police officer. And so I'd like to have a moment of silence, if I could. And then the chief is going to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, folks. Yes, unfortunately, Officer Stephen Townsend passed away at his home a little bit over a week ago. He was suffering some chest pains earlier in the week, and unfortunately, I think he succumbed to that kind of an issue, a cardiac issue. His funeral will be in Buxton on the 16th, next week, on Thursday. They'll be visiting hours between noon and 2. Most of the PD will be attending. I have been in conference with the Kennebunk chief to help us cover the town while we are at that funeral. And after the visiting hours, there'll be a graveside burial for Officer Townsend. So it's a big loss to the agency.
Thank you, Chief.
Condolences, Chief.
Mike, you on the air?
I'm here.
Great. Okay.
And so you're going to recognize Mike is going to participate virtually.
Right. Mike, you're going to participate?
Say again?
You're going to participate with the meeting tonight?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, approve the April 25th, 2024 Selectmen's meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
First, second,
We're
all in
set.
favor?
Aye. Aye.
4 and one's not here tonight. Public forum, this is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. Anybody out in TV land?
Well, we have one,
We have
someone coming.
we have one with us here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I took the long way around. It just seemed more polite.
I'm only working with one eye, so.
Well, then I'll try to catch the good one. So my name is Larissa Crockett. I'm the executive director of the Kennebunkport Heritage Housing Trust, and I'm here with a couple of pieces of good news. I do hope to be on your agenda at an upcoming meeting to expand further, but today I just wanted to announce that we have in our Heritage Woods neighborhood, so that's the neighborhood that was built and the houses were sold in 21 and 22. We have a homeowner that has decided that they are ready to move elsewhere and to move on to something a little with more land and more space for them to be the people that they are looking forward to being in that new space. So we are getting an opportunity to not only welcome another working family or senior into our community as a year-round resident embedded in this home, but we're getting a chance to really show what perpetual and permanent affordability looks like. So we are going to be launching on our website, khht.org, on Monday morning. There will be a separate page that is devoted to the sale of this house and the process that we're going to use to sell this house. It will be done through a lottery. And so what will happen is people will fill out an application. They will have to take a home ownership course that Avesta offers online, and they'll need to have pre-approval for a mortgage to purchase this home. They also cannot earn more than 120% of the area median income in the household. And all of this information will be on our website. There will be a table that shows what does that AMI look like for different sized households. The application materials will be on there. There will be a frequently asked questions about how this lottery process is going to work. And of course, I will be ready to take any phone calls, emails, or requests for more information. But we're excited for our homeowners because this is a great opportunity, right? This is kind of what this housing is also meant to do. It's meant to give people a starting place to build a little equity and to be able to move on if that's what they wish to do. And we're excited to really make somebody's day. We're expecting to have a lot of interest in this home. It's a really nice home. It's a little over 1,600 square feet. It's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and it's going to be being sold for $326,094. So this is a really exciting opportunity for somebody to have, and looking forward to that process. When I come back to see you, hopefully maybe if I'm able to get onto your next agenda, also wanted to just celebrate with you tonight, and then I'll come with much more detail. The KHHT board voted yesterday to enter into contract with Patco Construction for our Land and Woods neighborhood. Very excited to get that process going, hoping to break ground at the end of this summer and be able to stand here at this time next year celebrating 6 new homeowners into those homes as well. And so that process will be kind of unfolding as we go through the finishing up the planning board process. You'll be hearing from us quite a bit, but at a future meeting with you sometime soon, I'll come with house plans. We think people are going to love the design that Patco came up with. It really looks like a classic New England farmhouse. They took what we said about wanting to meet a classic Kennebunkport aesthetic, and they really embraced it. And we're very pleased with the design. We think that the neighborhood's going to be a wonderful neighborhood, and we're looking forward to welcoming folks in there as well. And then since I'm here, just last plug, if you play pickleball and you would like to keep this great work going, please head to our website and sign up for our pickleball tournament, which is June 22 and 23. Thank you to the K-Port Parks and Rec Department for their support by letting us use the Rotary Park at Beechwood Courts. And then I guess the last thing is I just wanted to say, especially to Alan and Mike, who are on Zoom, thank you for your forethought back when this trust was being formed. It was kind of hard, I'm sure, to imagine that this could work. How could we have permanent, affordable housing here in Kennebunkport? And I'm just really grateful to the town for their vision in committing to this process and letting these houses be built, and then looking to see how this process is going to move forward. And I really thank you guys for your leadership and your vision in having that back in the day when we were getting started. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So Larissa,
Yes, Ms. Smith.
could you just clarify for people that when they're applying for this home, that also puts them on a list for future homes?
I would love to clarify that. So we work with an area median income sort of process. So we will be, for this home, creating a lottery for people that are not earning more than 120% of area median income, and we will keep that as a standing list. So if another home that is income capped at 120% AMI, it becomes available for sale, we'll have a list already formed and be able to pull off of that list for the next bit here. Also, with our Land and Woods neighborhood, we expect that some of those homes will be designated to that same income bracket, and we will have a list that we're able to work from. So while there's only one house at this point that is up for sale, we do think that it will be an opportunity for people to help us get those standing lists going, so that when housing opportunities come forward, we're able to just work from the list that we've established through a fair and equitable lottery process.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody?
I'll save mine for when she comes back with the presentation.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody in TV land?
We have 11 attendees, but no hands raised.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, number 4, consider a special amusement license for Sandy Pines Campground, 277 Mills Road.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
So at your last meeting, we had the special amusement permit on the agenda. There was a property owner off of Abenaki who showed up and had some concerns about it. So you had tabled it to this meeting, and Cheryl Childs is here from Sandy Pines Campground to answer questions that you may have.
Okay. Would you like to come up? Thank you. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you explain to us what you would like to do with your amusement permit if you get one?
Sure. We have music for our guests. It's 3 to 5 in the afternoon, has been consistently 3 to 5. It varies really rarely, really. And it typically is at the end of the year, we'll have a thank you party or a gathering for our staff. But other than that, it's consistently been 3 to 5 in the afternoon. And it's one man, 3 people. We have Kennebunk River Band. I have a list of the bands from last year, and I have a list from the previous years as well. So that's what we're looking for.
So you're doing this on a daily basis?
No, absolutely not. Once
So-
a week, if that.
Because I see
in the
that
summertime.
in the summertime. So
Yep.
what I'm looking at here is that you do it from 4 to 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Is that correct?
We'd like to change it to 4 to 6, and it won't be on Saturdays this year. It's a little more difficult to book on Saturdays, so it might be on a Thursday. And I can provide a calendar of what we have scheduled, if that's something that you'd like to have. It has been on Saturdays, and it's been 3 to 5 in the past. We were looking to go to 4 to 6, just so that more people could get back from the beach and enjoy the band or the music.
But still limiting it to 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you chose to have it, if you chose to have a larger party or a larger event somewhere, would you come back to request that? Or are you seeing this as permission to
Oh,
have
of course.
amplified music anytime?
No, absolutely not. And I don't anticipate that at this point.
So you're committing to keep this as a happy hour, 4 to 6, once a week event?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And this is something you have done before under this type of amusement license, correct?
correct.
You've held these in the past?
Yes. Yep.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, so is there any, I think the problem, well, I don't have a problem. Well, I probably have a lot of problems, but not for this specifically. But when I'm looking at the special license, it's more for the board question. So when I read through the special amusement permit, there's this thing about the section of conduct consisting in offensive by licenses, and then there's a statement, section C, that says about unnecessary noise. So is there anything, is this amplified music that you're providing?
They will have an amplifier,
Is
some
there-
of them, yes.
Would there be any, so I'm just trying to see if we can find some middle ground here.
Sure.
Is there a detriment if it was acoustic without the amplification of the basses?
I feel for the entire crowd to enjoy it. It's located next to our lodge, and it's always in the same spot, next to the lodge, behind the pool, or next to the pool, I should say. I'd rather not go without the amplification, because for a band as well to come across like they would like to be received, I think amplification is necessary. We haven't had any complaints. We've had a few, we had a complaint at night. Once the office closes, we have a night watchman, the phones transfer. There was an incident August 18th, because my night watchman sends me a report every night, so I have it every morning when I get there. And it was for a complaint that was at a neighborhood next to us. And there was communication with the police. They didn't come, they called, and it was a wedding. And they actually had a permit for their wedding until 11 p.m. So we don't have anything for complaints from this music. And I would be aware of that.
I think we also checked with with the town police as well. There's nothing
Yeah.
on record that I'm aware of.
I think there are people here that want to speak, so, but hang on just a minute. Okay, what else do you have to offer? Is that what you want to do is, what you're asking is you want to go ahead and have it on, not Saturdays, it says Saturdays. here,
Not
but
consistently Saturdays. There'll
not
be a few
consistently.
Saturdays,
So
but
we
not all
won't-
Saturday.
You don't, it'd be nice to know what day that you were going to have that between 4 and 6, and if you could stick to that schedule, that would make things a lot easier for us as a board.
Okay,
Once a
And-
week, too.
Yes,
Just
once a week.
okay.
Yeah, so this way, I think what we're getting at, if it was a go-to, once a week, daytime, the neighbors knew about it, if we all agreed, then that is the,
Okay. I'd go back and revisit then with some of the people that I've already talked to for booking, because I didn't anticipate any challenges, because we haven't had any challenges in the past, so, but I can revisit
Well,
that.
again, once a week, I don't think we need it on a specific day to lock, that locks their scheduling like crazy. If it's once a week, it's once a week. It doesn't matter if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday, does it? I don't think it would matter to me.
Okay, so we're going to listen to a few people in the audience, and we may not vote on this tonight. It may be the next week,
Okay,
next meeting, but I'm not sure yet.
okay,
Thank
Thanks for the
you. I may
opportunity.
have to call you back up in a few minutes.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hey.
Thank you for letting me speak. Michael Dunlay from Abenaki Way. I spoke last time. I did have some comments, but before I said that, I do want to say that My wife and I did at least call the police at least twice, so I can say that that would have been registered. And I can specifically remember one time was a Sunday afternoon in October, when the music was just pumping and blaring through the woods. So it was a Sunday afternoon, middle of the afternoon.
And you're sure it was from the campground?
Absolutely positive, yep. And my wife, I don't want to steer her thunder, but she'll speak to what she observed when she went over to politely ask them to take it down a notch, what she observed by the pool. So anyways, for your benefit, because you weren't here last time, I explained that a number of times over the past 3 to 4 years, we're on Abenaki Way, by the way, we heard what can only be described as overly loud booming music. And we are 4/10 of the mile through dense woods, and I'm on the south side of Abenaki Way. So if we can hear music that loud and clear, it's just, in my opinion, frankly, too loud. So there was, most of the times, I suppose, in the times you mentioned, but I do specifically remember a Sunday afternoon when that was occurring. So I just think that's too loud. So if I read the special amusement ordinance, and we mentioned it last time, and I have to say, I think in both letter and spirit, it's strongly worded and emphasized for the consideration of neighbors. And it really does put the onus on the person applying for the license, to make sure that the music is not overly loud. And I really don't see any way where you can get around that by having amplified music. I mean, that is what it is. And as my wife will testify to, when she went over and asked them to take it down a notch, it doesn't result in any good.
If you don't mind me asking, can I communicate?
If you have to come up to the
Yeah.
mic.
We
I was
want to not have people.
We observed this
Okay.
beginning in 2020, so probably in 2021 and maybe the next summer thereafter, a few times. But, you know, these things, at some point, you kind of wash your hands of it because it doesn't do any good, and you don't want to bother the police and be a busybody. So I think there's more people that might be annoyed by this that necessarily speak out or come to these meetings. But anyways, getting back to the ordinance, I don't really see any way that a fair and reasonable reading of the ordinance would allow the volume that I heard on those occasions. So if you came to my yard and you stood in my yard, I think you'd see what the problem is. And, you know, the ordinance really doesn't get into, well, as long as you're doing it only 2 hours. At some point, I mean, I get that, I appreciate that it's not at nighttime, that's great news. But at some point, too loud is too loud. And it doesn't matter whether it's 7 a.m., 2 p.m., 7 p.m., 11 p.m. Too loud is just too loud. There's just a point where we reach that. So I think a fair and reasonable reading of the ordinance just doesn't allow for the volume that we experienced on a number of those occasions. And I would say probably doesn't allow for the amplified bands that you're mentioning. And I also think that a fair and reasonable person standing in my yard or some of the other yards on Abenaki Way and hearing that, I don't see how they could conclude that volume was abiding by the letter, both the letter and the spirit of the special amusement ordinance. So it's good news that you're talking about happy hour kind of times, 1 day a week, I get that. But the amplification, in my mind, is still a red flag. And you still have to, I don't think that if you got such a permit, that it gives you a blank check to say, well, it's only 4 to 6, it's only 1 day a week, we can go as loud as we want. Because that's not the way the ordinance is written. It doesn't refer to day of the week, time of the day. It's too loud is too loud. So, thank you.
Well,
Captain.
thank you.
Mike Weston, do you have a question?
I do.
Mike, go
I
ahead.
just- Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you fine.
Okay. I have a number of friends who have a modular home over at Hidden Pond. They are
Not Hidden Pond, he means the-
as same age as me or older. And I got letters back from, I asked them specifically about the noise because we had some people mentioning it. And they said that for 2 hours a week, one is in the mid 80s and the others are in the early 80s. They said that the noise does not bother them. It is not loud and obnoxious, and that they're happy to have it there. So I mean, they lived there. So they lived there while
No.
that was Rose Daly and Lynn and Bob Norton. If anybody wants the specifics, they told me I could use their names, and they lived there. So, and there have been no complaints from all of the condos across the street, none. And so I just can't see that one person complaining about the noise is, and for a couple of hours a week where people are having fun is an issue. That's my, now, then I'll shut up.
Hey, Mike, just for the record, you mentioned Hidden Pond. I think you meant to say
I meant,
the campground.
Pines. Yeah, Salty Pine, yeah. That's where it was.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
they lived there. And so I think that, I think this, I understand that somebody may not like amplified music, but these people who live there are not offended by it
Thanks,
for
Mike.
2 hours a week. That's it. That's all I got.
Go ahead. You have to state your name and where you live.
Kathy Tito Dunlay, also from Abenaki Way, and I just want to, second what Michael had gone over. But just to give you a little bit of detail on, the days when it was just so loud that it made sense for me to jump in my car, go on over, and ask them to take it down a notch. So at the pool, there was amplified music and maybe 2 or 3 onlookers. So it seemed kind of unnecessary, if you will. And additionally, the people, just the gentleman that I complained to was working in a little house. I don't know if he was the manager of the day or something. And, frankly, was kind of indifferent. And I think the important thing to keep in mind is if that's, what it's been historically, and once again, getting another, seeking another approval for a license here, it just, I don't know, it kind of, it's just a little bit concerning because of the volume. Again, as Michael said, it's not so much, oh, well, it's only a couple of days, and yes, people are having fun, but, we're kind of trying to have fun too on our properties. So just wanted to mention that's sort of what's concerning is the historical, what it's been like, and it just kind of begs the question, well, what it's going to be like in the future, because as we know, one thing always leads to another. And there are so many trends today around live music in venues, regardless of where they may be, even if it's in a relatively residential area. So,
All right, well, thank you. Cheryl, I think you've heard the neighbors. Hopefully it might.
Yeah, there's more.
Oh. This will be the last, I think I know what you're going to mention, so this will be the last person.
We also have an attendee via Zoom with their hand raised for a while.
We got people,
No. This-
Hi, my name is Michael Tahan. My wife and I live on Abenaki Way. We've heard historical information about what was heard in the past. I'm very concerned about the wording of the ordinance and the possible slippery slope of the ordinance. Who's going to enforce it? What else can be done? I heard, so if you want to have special events, you can come back to the board and we'll approve. It just, to me, seems like this is opening a Pandora's box into something that may escalate into something that we don't want. And I'm very concerned about the wording of the ordinance. I'm concerned about what, how loud is loud, who is hurt by this or who is not tolerant of this music in our quiet neighborhood. And I can assure you that after reading the ordinance and the questions you've asked, it just seems to me it's just not ticked and tied to what it should be for something like this outside of a residential neighborhood. And I think it's real important that be spelled out. So,
Thank you.
speaking for the future, thank you.
Yes. Anybody else?
We have someone on Zoom, Mark Israel.
We have one more person.
Okay.
Richard Driver, Goose Rocks. There's a question as to whether or not the select board has the authority to even issue an amusement license. If you look at the ordinance at 346.2, it says that the amusement permit is given to an entity that has a liquor license for consumption on the premises. My understanding is that the applicant only has a package license, wine and beer in their store. If I'm incorrect, correct me, but I have not seen any application for a consumption license for the applicant. There's also the issue of, is this an expansion of a non-conforming use? If you recall, Lazy Pines was an applicant before the planning board in 2018. It was a controversial application. The planning board, for many of us, tried to put a square peg in a round hole, and it didn't fit, so they enlarged the hole. But this, it's a change in the character of the prior owner. So the standard for a non-conforming use is not what we have in the ordinances. If you look at what happened at the planning board, they referred to the campground ordinance. The campground ordinance is inapplicable to this campground. This campground is a non-conforming use. What did the Spangs have? Did they have music? Did they have bands? If they didn't, then this applicant is prohibited from having bands. They can go back to the planning board, but I don't believe that the select board has the authority to grant an amusement permit. And I think you have to recognize that this is an issue for a non-conforming use. It's not permitted in the zone and is not permitted to expand beyond what the prior owner had. The prior owner had a non-conforming use. When the town adopted zoning ordinances, it prohibited that use in the Goose Rock zone. That meant that any further operation of the campground had to be consistent with what it was in the past. And when you have bands and music and what have you, that's a change. So they don't have a consumption license, as far as I know. And the ordinance specifically says the amusement permit is given to a facility that has a consumption license. So I don't think you have the authority to issue the amusement permit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I say something? Right here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jerry Richard. I also live on Abenaki Way, and I'm a little concerned because, one, as I heard about this and then started reviewing what the license was, then I go in, and I might be wrong, there's a reasonable notice by the town of Kennebunkport for the applicant for this. Was there a notice given somewhere? Because I looked back at a lot of your meetings, and I looked at a lot of other things online, and I could not find prior to granting a permit, a reasonable notice, town of Kennebunkport and the applicant, to hold something so that we can do this. I don't even know if I'm just talking out of school here, I don't know if you have the authority to be able to do that. Further down, it talks about disturbing the peace of others, ordinary sensibilities, and things like that. I don't think any of that's being addressed. And if you do go so far as to approve something, I think if you approve it, you ought to be able to give the people who live there and are going to be affected by it on a very regular basis a way of making a call to the police station that will be taken seriously, or, put something out there that we know how to do this without having to get in our cars, drive over, look around, try and find somebody, not knowing what we're supposed to be doing. Now, I've lived there for 25 years, and I know way back when, and I've been trying to figure this out, but they used to have kind of regular parties and loud music across the street where the all-day breakfast thing, the dairy and all that stuff was. There was all kinds of stuff going on there. We had no control over that. I don't even know what it was, but, so that's just where I'm coming from. I don't see where everything, they're crossing the Ts, dotting the Is, and I think, I agree with this gentleman here, you've got to look into this a little bit more before you just go, yep, okay, go ahead and do it. Blank check.
Thank you.
We have a hand raised on Zoom?
Go ahead.
Mark Israel, you can speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Okay, I live at 22 Norwood Lane, which is across the wetlands from the park, the campsite. And we have been very much affected by increased noise in general. And I'm afraid that an amusement license would open the opportunity to have music and amusements beyond the scope of what the selectmen, I think very correctly and thoughtfully, tried to nail down exactly what they want. My feeling would be that if they want to come for an amusement license, the license, if it's possible to do this, should articulate specifically what is allowed and what is not allowed. Because whether it's volume, frequency, location, all these things greatly affect the neighbors who live across the wetlands from the campsite. And we may not have frequently, although I personally have called at least once, although we may not frequently complain, it is a major source of annoyance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
So one thing, I was going back to state statute. And state statute is Title 28, Section 1054, which talks about the permit for music, dancing, or entertainment, which is the special amusement. And it says a municipality may require an on-premise retail license to obtain a permit for music, dancing, or entertainment. So I think you can have a retail license. Although I would agree it's unusual. You know, we usually have restaurant kind of licenses where people are consuming there.
Because it is private property, so if someone purchased it there, it wouldn't be illegal to consume it there.
It would not on private property, you know, assuming they're of the
They're
proper age.
permitted,
and,
yeah, exactly.
You know, things of that nature. In regards to previous complaints, you know, we did ask the police to go back through their records. They went back to 2020. They did not have a record of complaints regarding noise in the system. Certainly, people should be able to call the police if they think there is an issue. I think some of the concerns I'm hearing tonight are about how often it's happening and the hours it's happening. And, you know, the board certainly has the right to restrict that. You know, the town clerk is the one who is responsible for the notice provisions, and to my knowledge, she's met those notice provisions. If you have, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't even play one on TV, so if there are specific legal questions the board wants to ask, we would need to go back to the town attorney.
Okay. So what do you guys like to do? Do you want to table this to another meeting, or do you want to continue on, or what?
Can you still have more comments?
Oh, we have,
Sorry, hang on just a minute, please.
Well, I'd
You
like,
want to continue on? Or you want to table it to find out some more information?
well, I'd like to hear what Kate has to say,
Yeah.
and then let's decide from that, after that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Kate Bauer-Burke, Summer Breeze Lane over at Goose Rocks. I guess my concern, since I live far enough away that I have not been aware of the noise, but I can certainly relate to people who have been bothered by it. And I don't think you necessarily have to constantly be calling the police to have it be an actual fact that this may rise to the level defined in the ordinance as being inappropriate. I guess I'm more concerned with what came to me was procedural issues. I certainly, first and foremost, have the jurisdictional issue that Richard spoke to, that this property is a non-conforming use and had to go through the planning board, not once, but I gather twice, because I think it's, as I understand it, at one point after the initial approval, for the current applicant to own the property and operate it the way they plan to as a campground still. There was another issue about whether an additional swimming pool could be put in there. And I believe that was again turned down because it's an expansion of a non-conforming use. I am not a land use attorney by any means, but as I understand expansion, it refers to not just a physical plant or a building or something like that, but it refers to the function, the use, the operation. That means, I agree with Richard, if this was not the way the camp was operated before, if they did not have live music and bands, then this would be an expansion. And it seems to me that the first order is back to the planning board to ask them about this, that it's not necessarily the select board's jurisdiction first and foremost. And secondly, as far as notice goes, I'm a little confused. I honestly did not know that they already had for several years a special amusement permit. That may be on me, my bad, that I didn't look at, the select board's agendas all the time. But I did, notice it certainly at the last meeting. And what concerns me is, as the ordinance clearly says, hold a public hearing. So I guess I'm looking at what's the definition of a public hearing? Clearly you already have on the agenda tonight a public hearing, denoted as that, on other issues. And separate notice was sent out by the town with regard to those issues. Like a lot of people, I hate to say it, folks, not everybody looks at the select board's agenda every time it's perhaps sent out there or it's already on the website. So that's another sort of purely procedural question. Is this being handled procedurally correctly? Or does it need to, even if it has jurisdiction within the select board at this point, have you given correct notice? I mean, I've spoken to people, particularly at the west end of the beach, who have said, oh my God, so, and did not know about it by any means of any public notice. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
One final point, if I could, to add about this. There seems to be an acceptance that there was an issued amusement permit before this. And I had an email exchange in 2021. I can go back to my office and reproduce the email with Werner Gillian, the previous code enforcement officer. And I mentioned to him at the time the loudness of the music coming from Sandy Pines, and he made clear to me that, well, they can't do that because they don't have a special amusement permit, which I didn't know what it was at the time. So I had an email back and forth with Werner about this, and he said, well, they would have to go in front of the Board of Selectmen. And I said, well, would abutters be notified of this? And he said, well, it would be posted on the agenda. So this was 2021, and as of that point, Werner Gilliam indicated to me via email that there was no special amusement permit. So we probably should go back and check whether there has actually been one issued, because according to Werner. Yeah, and then as far as the notice, I check the Board of Selectmen agendas really regularly. So I'm fairly certain, I'll never say 100%, but I'm fairly certain over the past 3 years, I've never seen anything on the Board of Selectmen agenda about a special amusement permit for Sandy Pines, because that would have caught my radar. If any time after 2020 I saw that, I would have noticed it and remembered. So just those two final points. The exchange with Werner, which I can reproduce, indicating that there was no special amusement permit. The fact that I never saw it on a Board of Selectmen agenda. And as far as the police, I can't speak to their record keeping, but Kathy and I can attest to calling them at least twice. And I can specifically remember one time on a Sunday afternoon in October, because I had a joking exchange with the officer about it being the middle of a Sunday afternoon. So apparently there's some gaps in how they can trace their calls and how they enter data, whether it's pertinent to Sandy Pines or not. But we, in fact, have called the police, so.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. Fred Stafford, 892 Kings Highway. I think we can all agree that one person's music could be another person's noise pollution. And I think it's important as citizens of this town that we try to maintain the character of this town. That's why people come here. We come here for the historic buildings, the natural beauty of this place, especially Goose Rocks. We're not Old Orchard. We're not Hampton Beach. I don't think we ever want to be. And so if you have amplified music that's going beyond the campground itself, you're imposing on other people, and there are ordinances. I mean, there's even a beach rule that says, don't have music loud enough to disturb your neighbor, other people on the beach. Well, if you're going to do that, why would you allow it to bother a whole neighborhood? And then chapter 105 1 in the ordinance says, electronically amplified, this is under peace and good order. Electronically amplified sound from commercial establishments is prohibited. So if you're going to do that, why would you allow a campground to do it? You know, where it's going to impact other people around them. We all know around the water that sound travels a lot quicker and louder, you know? And the other thing is, I don't think anybody would complain if they wanted to have unamplified music. Maybe not a marching band, but, you know, acoustic music or something, guitar, whatever. And the bottom line is, it's not going to impact their business. They're not in the music business. They're in the camping business. So to deny them something like this should have no impact on their business. But to allow it will impact the neighbors. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'm Nina Perlmutter. I live far away from Sandy Pines Campground, over by Kennebunk River. But I'm vice chair of the planning board, and I think Mr. Driver made a very salient point. This very well may be an expansion of a non-conforming use. I remember doing Sandy Pines when they came to us, and there were a lot of neighbors concerned about noise then. There was concern about expansion of the campground and what they could do and what they couldn't do. That's in the past. But this is really a different type of use from a campground. And it really should go back to the planning board. Now, the confusion I have, and I don't know exactly how we define a special use permit, because in some non-conforming situations, you can get a special use permit, but for one time, for a wedding or for something like that. But if you're going to make it a permanent part of your system, if you're going to make entertainment a permanent part of your system, that doesn't sound to me like a special use permit.
It's a special amusement permit.
A special amusement permit.
Not a
Okay.
special use.
Not a special use, but a special, it sounds like a special use, okay? Even though it's a special amusement permit. It implies that you're doing this one time or odd times, you know, but a few times. But if you're doing it on a regular basis, if you're making this part of your campground, that certainly is expansion of a non-conforming use, and it really should come back to the planning board. And believe me, we're not looking for work. We have plenty of it. So.
Thank you. What do you want to do? I think we should table.
Yeah,
The one
I
that's
think
still-
we need to, I do want to run.
Mike, what do you think about tabling this till the next meeting?
But yeah, you talking to me?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think that if there's some, I'm not aware of any prior legal issues. And I believe they had an amusement permit in 22 and 23. So I don't know about prior to that, that was being talked about, but this is a continuation of one that's already been issued by the Board of Selectmen in the past. So I have a little bit of a concern that, from what I just heard too, is that, and that some of the reading an ordinance that says we can't have any commercial establishment having loud music or something. I'm paraphrasing what I think I heard. And, you know, so you're looking at, well, what do? We tell non-anthem, and we tell other places, the Pilot House, wherever, that they can't do that, or what? So I think it's a slippery slope the other way. But I would like to find a way to resolve once and for all the legal issues. And I do know that since I've been involved, I don't recall a public hearing for a special amusement permit at all. but I do know that we give 2 weeks' notice or the notice on the agenda. I don't know how much we get. I don't know, it's 2 weeks or 1 week, but we give a notice. So if you want to table it to resolve legal issues, then that makes sense. If you're tabling it because of 2 hours of amplified music a week, that doesn't make sense to me. But
agree.
I'm only one person, so.
But I agree with you, Mike. The only reason that I would want to table it is because of the legal issue only. I don't know about what about you two guys? How do you feel about this?
So I
We're not gonna, we just won't vote on it tonight. We'll wait to see if we can get some more information and come back at the next meeting.
yeah, I think where my thoughts lie on this is the expansion of use discussion. And I think I said this when this first came up last week or 2 weeks ago. You know, this was a campground. And I think the gentleman that spoke, you know, talked about, and again, as it was brought up tonight, there's no detrimental effect to not having this amplified music for their business. So if I look at them from a business perspective, you know, this isn't going to constrain them. If I look at it from an expansion of business, an expansion of use, that's where I think I'm getting hung up. Because I do think for a lot of reasons that people spoke this evening, I do not know how to get around that one. I think for me, that's the stop point.
What about you?
I'm also concerned about the expansion of use piece. I think that's the most convincing to me as to why we need to just take a little further look at this.
Yeah, I think you're right. As far as anything else goes, what do you think? Might be able to get some information?
I mean, I can talk to Amy.
Yeah.
And try to get clarification for you.
All right, so go ahead.
So my name is Charles Simmons. I'm also on the planning board. The land use ordinance has some good guidance on maximum sound pressures. I think it's section 6.16, talks about sound levels, you know, decibels during the day and at night. So, you know, and there are apps you can download onto your iPhone that will help you measure sound pressures if you want to get some data. But the point is, there are some rules that already exist about allowable noise levels. That's all.
All right, well, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and, do we need to have a vote?
You need a
on-
vote to table it.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table the discussion around the special amusement application for Sandy Pines Campground until further input from legal.
Legal.
Yeah, and table it till next meeting. I think that we need to address it next
Are you
meeting. Yeah, I
seconding
will
that?
second that if we table till.
I would
next
just
meeting.
remind the board that they have a very busy next meeting.
I know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's no interest in this. It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, good.
Well, no, I think we want to make sure that we're clear, right? Because we don't want to have to table it again. So why don't could we say until we get the appropriate feedback?
That's fair.
And
Is
then,
that what-
and then we'll advertise it as we normally do in the agendas.
okay, so are you going to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. The first and second, all in favor? Mike?
Well, did I hear that it was only for expanded use?
Yes.
I know, I think I think there's something else we need to do, and that is that somebody brought up that whether or not the planning board, or that the select board has the authority to issue the special amusement license, or, yeah, permit. So I think that needs to be resolved as well, because this is the way we've operated, I think, at least long as I can remember.
For a long time.
Long time.
Yes.
So I think that needs to get resolved as well.
Okay.
Already, we'd certainly add that.
Can I just ask a general question
No.
about this?
I think we're headed back to the attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, so, how'd you vote, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
With
Okay,
that amended
4.
comment.
Yep. Okay. Moving right along. 5, consider approving the liquor license for Noon's Lobster Hut, Inc., located at 9 Mills Road. The staff has recommended approval of this license.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay. First and second. All in favor? Mike?
Yes, yes,
4? Okay, great. Consider approving the liquor license for Rundle Marine Service located at 43 Ocean Avenue. Staff has recommended approval of this license.
So moved.
Second.
The first and second, all in favor? Mike?
aye,
4. Public hearing to consider the ordinance revisions on the June 12th, 2024 town meeting ballot. I'm going to open the public hearing. This is for LD 2003 land use ordinance. Galen?
So the other thing we need to do is the Planning Board and Growth Planning Committee are going to have a public hearing as well. And so we need to do a roll call to make sure we have a quorum of Planning Board and Growth Planning Committee.
Okay.
Okay, I'll run through the list of the names on the Growth Planning Committee. If you're here, either virtually raise your hand or just say you're in the audience, say aye. Dan Saunders. Paul Hogan. Jim McMahon. Liz Johnson. She's on Zoom.
But could we just please say if the hand goes up?
Oh, there she is.
Okay. And Jane?
And we just need to hear Liz.
Liz, you can say aye.
Aye, yes.
All right, we have 3 of the 5 members present. We have a quorum of the GPC. Moving on to Planning Board, Tom Boak.
Tom Boak,
He's there.
he's on Zoom. He raised his hand.
We need to hear
You
Liz.
can
Say-
speak. Unmute yourself, Tom.
All set, I'm here.
Thank you, Tom. Nina Perlmutter. Ed Francis. Scott Mahoney. Charles Simmons. George Litch. And Mike West. So we have 3 of the 5 members here. We have a quorum for the Planning Board.
Okay.
Do you
So-
want to open it up for a public hearing?
Yeah, I already opened it.
Okay.
Do you want to just give people an overview?
Absolutely. So what we were discussing as the first item is LD 2003. This is the amendment to our land use ordinance to address affordable housing. This has been looked over and reviewed by the Growth Planning Committee in great detail. There was joint hearings between the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, and GPC on this language, and then it was also reviewed by our town attorney. So what this language is going to address is 2 state mandates. There's 2 buckets, so to speak, that we're addressing. One is the affordable housing density bonus, which is given to affordable housing projects within the town of Kennebunkport, and that requires a 2.5 times the density for that zone. The second bucket is dealing with accessory apartments, which are called accessory dwelling units per the state statute. And so we have to allow an accessory apartment on every lot that allows for a single family. So that's what this language does. It brings us into conformance with the state requirement for LD 2003. That's just a general overview. I'm more than happy to answer any questions people may have.
Any questions from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
Is that the only piece you need, the public? Okay,
And
good.
do you have any questions, Rob? No? Okay. Moving right along. Item 8, consider Grant Right Management Corporation's proposal regarding FEMA reimbursement administration.
The FEMA flood ordinance.
He still had the FEMA flood ordinance, I guess.
Yeah, we have one more.
Okay.
As I thought there were
So you
2.
have one more public hearing for.
You left, Galen, so we
Yeah,
thought.
you left.
It's okay.
I thought we were done.
Well, I want to let people, if they want to ask
Okay.
questions. So thank you to the GPC and Planning Board members for attending tonight. We appreciate your service and input on LD 2003 and also future land use ordinances in the future. The next item on your agenda is a public hearing to discuss the map amendments and amendments to your floodplain ordinance. This is to allow us to be in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. So we have to adopt this if we want to be a participant in this federal program. And why this is so important is because it does allow people who have mortgages that are backed by the federal government to take advantage of the flood insurance program at the federal level. There are a few changes, especially in the flood elevations. You'll see those on our town website. They're on our GIS layers. You can see what those new coverage areas will be. This is important for residents to understand because there are people that were not in the flood zone, the flood hazard zone, that now are. And so they might be required to have flood insurance in the future. So the intent of this is, again, just to be in compliance with what the federal government wants us to. So, any questions regarding this ordinance?
Anybody from the public on Zoom?
No hands raised.
Do you guys have any questions?
No, we went through it.
I've been through it in detail.
I'll close the public hearing again. Okay, consider Grant Wright Management Corporation's proposal regarding FEMA reimbursement administration.
Yes, so Chief Sanford is our EMA director. And do you want to just kind of review kind of the damage we saw through the January storms?
So, you know, our recent storms, we really received quite a bit of damage in areas that we hadn't really seen before. In looking at, obviously, people have noticed on Ocean Avenue, Wami Beach, we sustained quite a bit of damage. And a little known fact, some people may not be aware of, that we sustained some damage in Dock Square and the bulkhead area on Ocean Ave, which is underneath, and the stores and the sidewalks kind of sit on this bulkhead in the street. And these are very large projects that need to be considered. It's kind of just back a little bit, you know, since I've been the EMA director, most of our storms and damage that we've had have been, you know, quick fixes and we move on. But some of these projects that we're seeing now, these projects need to be looked at in a different way, and sustainability is a big thing. Do we invest time and effort to improve these areas so we don't have to keep refixing them? And is the federal government able to help us with that? Because some of the stuff is very costly. So we, in our storms on the 10th and 13th of this year, we had some pretty severe damage. We've got, you know, some rough estimates, but those projects are going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort, and they could take several months, if not over a year, to get worked up and get kind of cooperation with the federal government to see if they can help us out with those things. So it's a lot of time and effort working with the federal government in these declarations. And we were given some information that this company that is before you actually provides those services, and they would take on those burdens and assist the community. And in most cases, their services are covered under those funds that the government gives us. It's not 100% guarantee, but in most cases, their cost associated with helping us through those projects and their work is covered under that. I can tell you that in the projects that I have done, I have spent many, many hours consolidating things, working through worksheets, back and forth, numerous meetings. It could be somebody's full-time job in some situations. So along with my police burden, I had that. And we have talked about it, and we wanted to bring it before you for your thought process and your input, because I personally believe that it would be very valuable to bring them on, but I do understand that it could be a risk.
Well,
thank you, Chief.
Yeah, and so just to emphasize what the chief is saying, There is regular reimbursement that we've handled internally, and there are going after funding for mitigation projects, which are these larger projects, and require a different level of analysis. We also talked about dredging near Goose Rocks Beach and whether that was something we wanted to pursue with York County. And of course, that involves an entire permitting process. So we talked to Grant Wright twice, and they gave us this proposal as well as a potential cost estimate of $110,000 based on what they heard. And of course, it's depending on your projects, the size of them, and how much the time they're spending on them. So we would need to be prepared to come up with that. Right now, the board has in this fiscal year $95,000 of the contingency that's unspent. I don't know what is ahead, but hopefully you can end up this fiscal year with that remaining, and you do have contingency in next year's budget, assuming the budget is passed. And you could use that as the backup. I would hope that if we entered this agreement with them, and what we talked to them about is that we would want to take a more measured approach, meaning that there may be projects that we can see that they're going to go through the process, and there may be more challenging ones that we need to analyze and see how much do we want to invest in them.
I think this is very well needed,
Yeah,
don't you?
oh, absolutely. It can't stay on the chief's shoulders. This is much bigger than somebody can do as an extra burden. What I'm curious about is, are there the funds that can cover this from either state or government? I guess it's FEMA government. Is that a separate allocation, or is it if you win it, it's included? If you're awarded, it's included to cover your costs?
So, I mean, when you go through the project process, whether it's a regular reimbursement or these others, I mean, the project has to be accepted by them. But if it is, then those administrative costs are capped at 5% of the project.
At 5% project, and 5, huh? Yeah, it's 20, so 20, that's a lot. That's $2 million then, basically, right?
On this estimate, yes.
Yeah, but gosh, you look at everything that we're doing, it's well beyond that. Now, is that only for the damage repair, or is that, I mean, again, for Ocean Avenue, where we're actually obviously building resiliency into it, it's more than just simply repairing.
Well, that's why we feel like we need help, because we're looking to bring forward a resiliency project and implement the recommendations of Woodard and Curran.
Yeah, exactly. And are there any funds where are we on our resiliency piece? Can some of those monies be allocated here if needed? For the
So when you say the resiliency piece,
I'm sorry, the capital, it gets down to 400K that we had.
450. So first of all, we need the budget to be approved.
Indeed, I'm counting on that.
Yeah.
People are so excited about.
And so secondly, you'll need to analyze what we have before us. So you're saying, could you use some of those resiliency funds to pay for this administrative fee?
It sounds like
if it was not.
You're buying money from the government. That sounds like a pretty cheap leverage.
I think it would, that would be determined almost on us in terms of the cadence that we kick off. So for example, when you start down we've got like 4 or 5 resiliency projects proposed. Depending, we might kick 2 off in the beginning of the year, see how some of this nets out, and then that will help us determine, kick them all off in the planning.
Granted, there's a lot of planning
Yeah.
has to go. I was just curious if those monies could be included with the 95, and it sounds like the answer is yes, if we so chose to.
I think if
So
you
it lowers the risk.
chose to.
If you so chose.
I would hope that we would know what projects we're going to include before we ever get to the 95,000, and have a sense for that. But what we really want them to focus on are the larger projects that are beyond normal reimbursement.
Right.
So the 110,000, Lori, is, just to be clear, the 110,000 is for the damage that we've incurred in the January storms, what we know happened, plus what we're teeing up for resiliency? Is that with this 110 would?
No.
No,
No.
this is just their cost estimate of what their administrative costs would be added to projects.
No, that's what I mean. But those are the projects that this 110.
We're really looking at the bulkhead is what we talked to them about, the Ocean Avenue Resiliency Project and dune restoration at Goose Rocks Beach.
Okay, so this wouldn't be anything to do with the river?
Well, the river's much bigger.
Yeah.
So we didn't have storm damage per se from that. So the FEMA reimbursement or hazard mitigation has to be related to damage you received in that storm.
That wouldn't include the Colony Beach?
You could, but the problem is, what are we gonna do there?
Yeah, okay,
Well, we're going to do the study, right?
hopefully,
Hopefully.
hopefully.
Well,
You got to choose. You see, no, it's a matter of, you say you can't do everything, and so, yeah.
well, so let me just go back. When we had the 450 discussion for the budget, that was on the list, right?
There were a number of projects on the list. We reduced the funding, but we also, those projects totaled more than the money we were asking for. So at some point, you have to choose.
You have to make some choices.
Okay. And do we know the yield? I don't know what word to use, but I would use the word yield for their, like, what, did they give you any sense of what they've been able to achieve with writing?
Well, if you look in the proposal,
No,
I
no,
mean,
no,
yeah,
but I didn't
they
get it.
list a lot of projects. They didn't say
the
for X
percent.
investment, you get Y. But, you know, they're selling to us, of course, and so they're
Yeah.
giving us the list of projects they were successful at. We asked them a lot of questions about the assurity of this, because the chief and I, neither one of us have done this before in this manner. And I was thinking about when I appointed the chief as EMA director years ago, I thought, this will just be filling once in a while. And it seems like we're doing this all the time now.
Yeah.
And so it's just that these projects relate back to our county hazard mitigation plan. So in order to go for mitigation funding, you have to have them listed in your county hazard mitigation plan. And so that, according to Art Cleaves, our York County EMA director, you know, that we would qualify. So that's why we're looking at other ways to do some of these projects.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It really does. And so you're looking for a motion, right?
If you want to move forward.
Yes.
Does Mike have any?
That was my next question. Mike, what do you think about this?
Well, I agree with it because we've had discussions during this last year or so about with the damages and so forth that we've had about actually trying to hire somebody to do nothing but write grants. You know, a part of the job would be to write grants, which is very special type of a job. And Chief does a really good job on things that we're trying to recover on FEMA, but we need to be able to widen our grasp of these things. And I think this is a good way to do it. And it's a lot of the money could be recovered, after the job is awarded or the grant is awarded. I just think it's the thing to do.
Okay.
It's good luck.
I have a question. Want to come up?
Good evening. Paul Hogan, Kings Highway, Kennebunkport. Are we talking about, I'm a little confused between private property and public property. Dock Square, I always thought that was private property, which would include the bulkheads. Is there
Yeah,
town property there? I understand, you know.
The bulkhead is really holding up the street and sidewalk, and so I would consider that part of our road infrastructure.
And
then the buildings are on pilings, so.
okay, and the Goose Rocks part of this, it's just to do a feasibility?
So York County purchased a dredge, I don't know if you've
Right.
heard that,
Yeah.
yeah. And so after these January storms, a lot of the communities around here reached out to York County to ask about whether dredging was possible. And York County has put their dredge together now and is working on a plan to get a staff to do it. So they have reached out to us as well as other beach communities about the possibility of doing dredging work and hiring the county to do it. I don't think we've made any determination that we want to do that, or that it makes sense. You know, Saco, for example, or Wells, they have
Different.
histories of doing dredges, and so, you know, it's like, yes, they want to do that. I've talked to them about some of our complicating factors, but it's another project that we did discuss, and York County discussed with them.
Thank you.
Have a hand raised on Zoom.
Okay?
Belinda, you can speak.
Yes, hi, this is Melinda Anderson down in the Goose Rocks off of Route 9. Is there any money that has been allocated or pinned for the town hall in the contingency funds?
Not in the contingency funds, no.
Okay, thank you.
They've been pinned for anything. They're contingency funds, right?
Right, they're contingency funds.
You all set?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. So are you actually, we actually looking for money tonight,
No,
or just a recommendation?
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
tell you where, I mean, we'd need, if FEMA couldn't reimburse them, or we were not successful in some portions of this, we would be on the hook. And so that's what I just wanted to make you aware of. And of course, if I were you, I'd ask, well, where would we pay for that?
That's-
Because we don't have that set aside. And so that's what, the only funding I see
Two
available.
potential pools, so that's.
So we have the funding if we need it to do that.
As long as you
Right,
commit it to that, yes.
right, okay.
But we're not committing the 95 right now, or I guess we would be, or saying it has to, we have to hold it and not spend it until
Well,
we.
I wouldn't want you to think you're gonna rely on that if things don't pan out the way we hope, and then not have it.
Right.
So if you're telling me that you wanna move forward, I think we have to set those funds aside to hold them until we know.
And what fiscal year would
Yeah, what
we be paying these off in?
I mean, my guess is we wouldn't pay anything until we hear from FEMA. It would become part of the FEMA reimbursement. But my guess is by the time people started work and we had a sense, it would be fiscal year '25.
Okay, so if we held the contingencies funds that we have right now,
Plus some extra money from the selectmen's contingency.
right,
And keep in mind, this is just an estimate.
Right, yeah.
and when would we get a more defined amount from them?
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point.
Okay.
And they'll be billing it as it goes, too. I mean, that's just, they had a not to exceed, but,
Yes.
you know, it's time and material.
I think that it's something that we need to do. I mean, we need to move forward with some of this stuff. I mean, this has been going on for 30, 40
no,
years.
I wanna do it.
And now
I
it's
just-
time, you know, to step up to the plate and take care of some of these problems.
No,
This is one good way of doing it.
Well, I'll understand more what we've got. I hate locking up a contingency fund, but there you go. That's what we do. It needs to get done.
Well, I'm just saying it's May now. It's not like I'm asking you in August or September. And so we're about to close out the fiscal year in a month.
So it's this year's
It's
contingency.
this year's contingency.
yeah.
I knew that. Okay, thank you.
So
Much happier. What about Mike?
Mike said he's for it,
Then we're good.
but we need to have a motion.
I move that is this a matter of just considering, or we're moving to go ahead
We're moving to go ahead.
with the Grant Right Management Corporation's proposal regarding the FEMA reimbursement administration?
Do you have to mention where the fund's coming from?
Yeah, it would be good.
And that we would allocate 95,000 from this fiscal year's contingency towards the estimated 110 not to exceed. That only would be so if none of the work was successful.
And the rest coming out of the selectmen's contingency?
If
No, that is the selectmen's contingency.
Oh, okay, all right, gotcha.
So I would just tell them we have a $95,000 max.
We have now redefined the max to $95,000.
Okay.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? No? Hearing none? Take the
Mike?
vote. All in favor?
Aye.
3, and Mike's the
Aye.
fourth one. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
So I would just ask the chief, before we move on, to come to the podium. The chief informed us this week that he is making a career change. And I want to just recognize his service to this community, which has always been outstanding since the day I met him. And I know that he will be deeply missed by his troops as well as the rest of the community. And I wish him nothing but happiness in the next chapter of his life. But I know that we should give him recognition for everything he's given the town.
Absolutely.
Thanks for trusting me and giving me the opportunity, but it comes down to the folks that actually do the hard work. I just guide the ship,
Yeah,
so
right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate your work. You've done a wonderful job, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. 9, peer project update.
So Michael Claus is
Here's
here
Mike.
with us tonight, who's my partner on the peer project. So we just wanted to give you an update on where things are. So first thing is, Proc Marine has agreed to extend the award on the contract until August 18th.
I believe so, yes.
And so Mike and I have continued to pursue other funding. Today, on May 9th, the governor released the Working Waterfront Resiliency Grant Program. That is up to $2 million available for applicants. The project has to be one that was damaged in the winter storms, that has a financial, economic impact in the region, that has a minimum of 10 commercial fishermen using it, and there are points awarded as to whether you have fuel and, other things. And these applications are due June 10th. I believe that the Commissioner Kelleher told me that they would review them through June and hopefully be making awards at the end of June, beginning of July. And then they need until August. It depends if the legislature adjourns tomorrow. If they adjourn, it's 90 days from that date before the money can be used, but they can make the award prior to that. So, so we want to pursue that, and we hope the board would agree that that's an avenue worth pursuing. And then, do you want to talk about EDA?
So I spoke with our EDA project manager, and she's looking for additional money for us also from the federal FEMA funds that they get. And she's meeting with some other people at the EDA who have control of that money. Hopefully, I think the 15th? The 15th of May. So she should be able to get back to us right after that meeting to see if there may be some more federal money coming towards us. From a matching standpoint, it's an 80-20 for the federal, and it's 50-50 for states, so we would certainly appreciate.
Do you know
any
what's the
extra.
level of the federal? What kind of numbers? Do we have any idea what we're even, yeah.
We don't have an idea.
Yeah.
So you never know with the feds.
Yeah.
But they're aware of how much, we're over, and
Yeah.
she's gonna ask for it.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Ask nicely.
Can you include the southern pier in what we ask for, or which way we?
We are trying to do the base project. I want to be crystal clear.
Yes. Shucks.
The other thing to just be aware of is In order for us to move forward with EDA on the original grant or any expanded funds, we need to certify that we have the funding in place. I need to sign a letter certifying that. And so one of the questions we have is, because of the timing of when DOT will actually have the money in hand, we'll probably get the award letter before this August 18th date, but we won't have a contract in hand from DOT. Usually DOT sends you an award letter, and then a few weeks go by before you get a contract to sign. And so we have asked our attorneys their interpretation of that and whether we can certify the funding if we get an award letter, even though we don't have a contract in place. So we're just ensuring that we can follow through.
I think that's a wonderful thing.
And the amount from the state, that was out of the 50 million that the legislator was voting on? And so they're doling it out in 2 million chunks.
What I had understood from the commissioners, it's a biennium budget, so they're gonna spend 25 million one year and 25 million the second year. And they're going to do rounds of funding, and so for the first round, they're focused on commercial projects. Those also can be private projects, but the funding has to go through the municipality and then to a private entity. In our case, we're easy because we're a public entity and it's a publicly owned. And then they'll go to smaller projects as time goes on.
But those are a 50-50 match.
1-to-1, they say, yep.
1-to-1.
No, I think it's great.
Melinda has her hand raised again.
Let's go for the state.
Go ahead. Melinda?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Melinda Anderson, and my husband is Dave Anderson. He's a lobsterman out of the Cape for over 30 years. And I appreciate what I just heard, that the pier, the main part of the pier, is what we're trying to get done. I know the South Float was on there as from the special town meeting, which the South Float is for yachts and recreational. It included the pump out station in fueling for yachts and boats, recreational boats. But right now, it's springtime and the lobstermen and lobsterwomen are trying to set their traps, and they're down to one hoist, and it's dangerous. I think it would be good if the select men and women would take another tour of the pier at low tide and just really get a true sense of where we're at with that pier. It really needs to be addressed. And the South Float is an extra that I think is going to cause us trouble with Tim Harrington owning Folly Island. And that would just bring in more yachts and more boat traffic to a working waterfront. So I just want to say that I don't feel as though the South Float should be our focus. It should be the main pier. And I do appreciate that I just heard that. So that's just food for thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So the hoists, I think Alan gave me a tour.
Yeah, last I knew, there was 2 out of 3 that was working. I'm not aware of just one working now. Nobody said a word to me, and usually they do.
I know that Frank left last week on vacation, and before he left, there was a hoist down, but he had gone to Lonnie's and Thompson and got a replacement piece to it. And I thought he had it back up and operating again.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it is. I think that we used it today, as a matter of fact. So I think there's still 2 working, but I'll find out for sure tomorrow.
Thank you, Mike.
So we're all set with that, right?
So we should know by the end of July then, end of June, beginning of July, whether or not we met the state, and that would close our gap for the first section of the pier?
They have the right to not fund the entire request, keep in mind. They could give you a partial fund. So I think we'll need to keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, and besides what Mike said for the EDA, we don't really have any more hands in any other funding pots?
The Working Waterfront Access Grant was one that I did apply for. Mike and I had several conversations with the staff at DMR who oversee that, and we had a Zoom call. There were concerns that we had about the covenants for the EDA mortgage. Mike forwarded those to the staff. They reviewed them. They said that they did not have an issue with that. I mean, keep in mind there'd be another covenant, so there would be another vote that the town would have to take to have that working waterfront covenant, because the EDA agreement is only for 20 years. But this working waterfront covenant would be forever.
Right.
And so when you look at market value, first of all, there's a memorial on the property. Secondly, we have this EDA mortgage on it. And so the amount of market value, and they only fund up to 25% of your market value, looked like it was going to be very small money in comparison to what we needed to fill, and it would also hold the
Encumber
town
us quite a bit.
forever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yep.
And so, and with the EDA grant, the town could purchase its way out of the mortgage. There is no change with the Working Waterfront Grant. So we told the Working Waterfront Grant people after, I think last week, that we were not going to continue to pursue that at this point. And really think we ought to put our eggs in this basket in EDA.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, Town Hall Building Committee minutes, and consider a request to consider public attendance at the Town Hall Building Committee meetings. I'm going to pass this over to Mary Beth, since she's on the committee.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So as we have been doing, whenever we have a town hall committee meeting, we then come to the select board meeting after that, the next board, and give the select board and the residents the update of what the town hall committee's been discussing. So at our last meeting, right before our last meeting, members of the committee that had not been through had gone on a tour led by Yanina and a lot of the directors of all the buildings, all the town-owned buildings in the town, what office space there is, what kind of space there is, so that everybody on the committee could get a very visual sense of, to answer that question of, did we look at all options, are there any other options? So that work was done. And then at the last meeting, our architect, Mike, had come forward and reviewed with us again another option for the town hall, and this was like a smaller footprint that we've discussed. So we walked through that with him, and a large part of the end of the meeting was talked amongst the committee about what point are we going to, come out with a broader meeting with the town to give information of where we are as a committee, what we've been looking at. And a thought was put forward to put some of the questions that came from either questions from our own board meetings or questions that came back through some of the surveys. And so the committee's looking to put some of the background information together and be able to get that out into a public forum and answer some of those questions too. So I think in general, there is a lot of good discussion happening within the committee. I think it's good to have the architect looking at different options. It's good to be looking at, where we could save some space or what would that look like, and to look at different site proposals. And hopefully in the near future, the committee will settle on a date to bring forward that, to the board and to more of a public information center, just as a touch.
When's the next meeting?
It's May, sometime this month, maybe next week or the week after.
Okay. So at the last meeting, it was brought up that the board would discuss public attendance at this next meeting, at the next meetings. What do you guys think about that?
So I think what we talked about, we had heard some stuff from surveys and likewise from the residents speaking to us. There was a request to have more of an open meeting as we discussed amongst the board and got feedback in from the town that there's not a lot of resources to do the taping and videoing, but I think what we talked about, an option at the last meeting, was to publicize that we would have the, when the meeting was being held and where the meeting was being held, and allow the public to attend them. But then ask that the attendants come and listen, let the committee and the presenters do their stuff, and then if they had questions, to email it to the committee. And that would be a good way to, keep everything moving forward and keeping, the transparency that people are requesting and that we'd like to provide.
John?
I don't have an issue with that. I do support having folks be present at the meetings. I have some concerns in terms of the dynamics of some meetings. There are times when you'd want to float ideas or share things, and I'm concerned that things can get out of control in the terms of folks either misunderstanding or misdesigning a response or what was said. So there are certainly some problems with that, because you do need to have open dialogue and talking back and forth. But I think, although I think that concern is real, I would need to see it really fail or be a problem before I would be against having the public have the opportunity, if they wished, to attend the meetings. I hope they would be very fair in what they tell other folks and how they represent what's occurring at these meetings. I don't think there's ever anything really to hide, but there are things that can be spun, and that is a concern I have. But c'est la guerre. That's where we are. So I would support the proposal that was just presented.
How about you, Mike?
Well, I think what John said is right. I think that we have very limited space for visitor or for observers at the meeting. I mean, we're talking the back row, basically is what might be available, and that's like, what, 6 people maybe across there? I don't know, you something like that, 5 or 6 people. So we can't have an overflow because the group that's working has got to be able to be able to communicate with each other without having people in between us and so forth. So that is a concern. I appreciate John's concern. And I think as long as we make it clear that they're there to observe and not to ask questions during the proceedings or interrupt during the proceedings, I try it. If it doesn't work, then we can end it. But I think I have a lot of faith in the people that it'll work if they want to just go and observe. I have the same concern John has about people leaving the meeting and spinning it a different way. It's like the whisper game sometimes. And I just, but I'm more than willing to try it. And if we have to end it because it doesn't work, we end it. But let's give it a try.
And I guess it is on a room available basis, right? First come, first serve, room available. I mean, that's.
Yeah, what I wouldn't want to see is, we're there and we're spread out and doing our work, and then have people come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to go and sit," and then they move up and they get in the middle of us and stuff. That somehow that's got to be controlled.
Well, that should be stated at the first meeting, that, people are able to come and sit down and listen and everything, and then if they have any questions, they can email us, or email with the committee or whatever, or the town manager. But I think that I want to give it a try, just to see if everything works well. I mean, the more information they get to be able to hear, the better off everybody is, I think, in the long run.
I think so too.
But like Mary Beth said, that the important thing is that after the meeting, they're welcome to send emails to us and their suggestions and so forth, which would be part of the process as well. So I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah, I think you're right. Did you want a motion for this, or is that enough?
I think that's fine.
Okay, perfect. We have a question. Come on up. You have to throw a rock at me. I can't see well.
Believe it or not, I'm on your guys' side. Nina Perlmutter again from Lock Street, Kennebunkport. The town hall is a big issue for a lot of people. And you might get more attendance than you think. Or my suggestion would be try to find time to meet here and videotape your meeting so that people can listen in. That way people who can't easily make it here, you know, can have the video. And then you don't have the problem of a whispering campaign, you know, she said, and so forth, and having misinformation spread everywhere. It seems if you're not going to allow comment, the best thing to do would be to videotape the meeting and let people listen, and then email in their comments.
Thank you. Alan?
Alan Evelyn. I live on Brookside Drive, and I'm on the Town Hall Committee. I do like the idea, Nina has a good idea about videotape, but doing the meeting here doesn't work very well. And the police station, the way it's set up for our meetings, the room is pretty much full. You might be able to get 6 or 10 seats behind us. But because we have several presenters at each meeting, in addition to all of the town hall committee members, yeah. So what I would say is making a videotape there is a possibility as well, because you don't need all of the setup that we have here. But we could make a videotape down at the police station, and that probably would be a good way to proceed, unless someone else has a better or worse idea.
Well, we could see how it would work, but, you know, you need to be mic'd to be properly heard, and that's, it may work, but most videos I've seen trying to take a big room where people are discussing, it ends up you can't hear much, but we'll see how it works. That might be a thought. Certainly can look at it.
Yeah, there isn't a tremendous amount of back and forth with the town hall committee. It's mostly presenters in front. However, with an additional microphone, a handheld mic, that could feed the system, I think that would work fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melinda has her hand raised as well.
Melinda, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I appreciate both comments. I agree. I think it does take away from any misunderstanding, or it minimizes misunderstandings by actually being able to watch it. And when the comp plan was being worked on, there was originally chat, which I was really enjoying, because then I didn't have to stop and wait and, you know, feel like I was stopping a flow. I could chat, and, you know, Dan would let it go for so long, and then he would address just quickly what the comments were, but we didn't think, or I didn't think, that I was going to get a response. It was just in the moment a way to say the thought so that things didn't get lost or put aside. Unfortunately, chat got taken away. I had heard for some reason that they thought people could do something indecent on there. So, and that came from a town employee, that it was taken away. So I think chat should be brought back. I mean, somebody could come into the meeting now and do something indecent. So I think if chat's brought back, that's a way that you can really say in the moment what a thought is, because it was really a hot topic about whether we need a new town hall or not. And I know you guys, the town hall is tight on space, but I also look at the post office was tight on space, and I think they dug down. They worked still within what they had. So I think it's important to still have it so that we can add and share ideas and be part of the community that is the town hall as well. So chat is another thought. And I really like both ideas of having a video. So I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that something that's possible,
Chat's
to
good.
videotape it?
I mean, anything's possible that you want to commit the resources to. Right now, we don't have remote mics. We have these, and, you know, they were purchased with this kind of setup in mind. And it also is a commitment of staff, and so that means our IT people are doing it, and that means that we're not doing other things. So I think the challenge is we're a small community, and we have a lot of meetings that we're doing that kind of support for. So we're happy to do whatever the board decides, but there are always consequences.
Okay.
I think we have a decision how to start. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
And then we'll move forward accordingly.
So what are you saying? Are you saying you want the video?
No.
Or you wait
I think
till
we
a little
need,
later?
we
Okay.
just, we're gonna do this in
All right.
person. That's the
Okay.
proposal that we have.
Okay.
And we'll see if it needs to be augmented. But it's a load on staff.
Yeah, it is.
Technically, I mean, chat, you've got to have a Zoom thing going to be chat. That makes no sense on a video if you're just, so it's complicated.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, I was just trying to think, I understand the resource constraints. I was just thinking that when we go and we bring the broader, you know, those touch points that we're thinking about bringing back to the community, that we tape those. Because those should be a very inclusive, what's the thought process now? What are the options being looked at? And I think if we can videotape that section as well as then invite the public into the working sessions, that might be the right compromise for
But I
right
thought
now.
that was a public, wasn't that gonna be a public presentation?
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that that one is taped.
Oh, that would, I thought would be Zoom, they'll be here, won't it?
I think, I think it would be right at the,
I think
right at
that's gonna
where
be
we are.
fully
yeah.
Zoomed.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just
okay,
saying.
Good,
I'm
okay.
just saying,
Yeah,
dude.
Good. But that's not the kind of video we're talking about. This video, as I understood it, it's a camera in the back of the room, taking a
Yeah.
video of the room. There's no other way
Yeah,
we
and
can
I
do it.
think,
because we're not doing
the
it.
value of that is that, and just had, like, having been in the meetings, yeah, I think I'd like to start where we are, the proposal that we have on the table. And then, you know, we will quickly be coming forward with the broader view for the town. And then that will be in a meeting like this.
Exactly,
Okay.
that'll be fully presented.
Right.
And taped, and it's gonna be great.
With handouts and stuff read before, so, you know, advertised.
Okay. How about you, Mike?
I like what we talked about
Okay.
in the beginning.
Yep. Okay.
Has her hand raised.
Who?
Robin?
Yeah, Robin, go ahead.
Hello, Robin Phillips, Kennebunkport. I was just thinking, didn't we set aside $400,000 for town hall planning? And I'm sure we haven't used that. Couldn't we buy a microphone or something? Because I think, if you only have room for 5 or 6 people, and we're spending all this money, we spent a bunch of money on a town hall that failed. I would think you would want more people than less to really see what's happening all the time, and be able to watch it later. And if you don't have a remote microphone, I don't see that it's going to cost that much, and we might use it at other times when, like you said, the staff is low. But I do think people would like to just see it. And I feel like we've spent a lot of money, a lot of time, had a lot of misunderstandings that weren't really necessary had we had some transparency in the first place. So I just would like you to consider trying a little harder to find a way to tape it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what I'm seeing now is we're going to just move forward with what we thought about doing in the beginning with no videotaping or anything else in at least the first meeting to see how things are going. Is that correct?
I think there is, and I certainly would be willing to, we could investigate further what it would
Okay.
really take to do the video, and that's, I can appreciate that's something useful.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what we're going to do.
I think the investigation would have
Yeah.
to be, like Lori said, a mic that could be handed back and
We'd
forth,
like to have
so.
to see, you guys
yeah.
can work it out and just
Yeah.
see
Yep.
how it
Okay.
goes.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to commit to it.
We don't need a vote for that, do we? Okay. Okay, 11, accept a $50 donation from an anonymous donor to the nurse's general account.
So moved, gratefully.
I have a first.
Second.
First, second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Accept a $200 donation from an anonymous donor to the nurse's general account.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, other business.
Me. Okay, so I have two things. One is the Growth Planning Committee had a meeting on Tuesday, and we had a presenter come, Galen got us a presenter from the DEP to take us through LID, which is Limited Impact Design, and low impact design, specifically around water drainage. So I would recommend that if anyone has the time or cares to see it, if they would want to, listen and watch that presentation. It was a lot of good information, and it's not only for municipalities, but it's also for residentials. And I think that was an important point. And there's some things that are very generalistic, and then there's some things that are really not tuned into our town specifically with all the ledge, but the general principles of what was presented would hold for them. So it was a very good presentation, a good use of time, and a good amount of information given to us. So I appreciate that. Recommend it too. And the second thing is Galen had made a public announcement at the meeting, so I'm just going to make it again, because Nina had spoken about birds and bird migration and bird death. I did not know this, so I thought I would make a public announcement that says now through May 15th, if you can turn your outdoor lights off and your indoor lights off between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., it reduces the amount of deaths of bird migration.
The indoor is really, I think, the critical one.
She said outdoor too,
Yeah, but the indoor, you gotta have them off.
but she said outdoor too,
Keep the indoor lights on.
and outdoor.
Are you finished?
Yes, outdoor.
John, do you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
I don't have anything either. Boss?
Mike?
Oh, Mike. I don't want to forget
No,
Mike.
I don't have anything. No,
What's that?
I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Laurie?
So the only thing I have is I would ask Yanina to update everybody on our open house on May 20th, May 18th, May 18th.
Saturday, yeah.
Yes, so next week on Saturday, on May 18th, we have Kennebunkport Community Open House. You might have heard about this previously as Public Works Open House, but this year we are growing, and we invited a lot of nonprofits and committees. We invited library and town departments to participate. So anyone is welcome. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will have all of the town equipment out. We will have wastewater tours. We will have a lot of handouts. We'll have a bouncy house for kids. So it's just a welcoming day for the community, for those people who coming back to their second homes, for those who are waking up to summer and going outside. We're hoping it's going to be a nice day. In case of rain, I will post something a day before, so please stay tuned and look on our website and Facebook. And if you have any questions, you can email me or Hope Maury. But everyone welcome, and please come between 9 and noon to Parks and Recreation building, so Parsons Field.
Thank you.
And the nonprofits are there because there's a lot of volunteer opportunities. And we often hear a lot from our population about they'd like to know where to meet people when they get here and who they can volunteer with. So it's an opportunity to connect those.
Nice, very nice.
Approve the May 9th.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Mike?
Aye.
And your favorite thing to do? Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
See? I have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much for coming and
Night.
listening.